Teresa Golden. I'm the department chair over in biology, and these sessions all go a little bit differently depending on what questions you might have and things like that. But the key for today is the idea that you get to meet a faculty member. You can use me as a backup, right? Once you get started here in the fall, I have business cards up here, so if you just need a faculty member to ask a question of, if you're not sure, then you're welcome to talk to me, all right? So when you do have my business card and everything, like I said, if you send me an email, just say, hey, you talked to us at Camp SE and I have a question, all right? So we always want you guys to feel here that you're kind of a member of the family, and if you need help, you don't have to be a science major to reach out to someone like me. We're here to help you, okay? So typically, they give me kind of a whole list of things to go over that are things that, students forget, or they need a reminder of, or they just don't know. So do you guys have any questions at first? Or you just want me to start rolling with it? You guys look beat from the heat, which I can totally understand. So, all right. Well, let me just start. All right. When you start a class, right, faculty members give you a syllabus. Do you have any idea what a syllabus is? Yeah. All right. So I've got some yeses. You guys concurrent students, or start early or anything, or you just know what a syllabus is? Syllabuses. Okay. All right. A little mixture. That's cool. All right. So in every class, you get a syllabus, which, like I said, several of you seem to know what they are. But essentially, it introduces the course. It tells you what the book is. It tells you what the policies are for that professor. It tells you some university policies. Typically, it gives you some dates of tests and things like that. And they're not exciting documents, as Kayla could probably attest to, as well as up here. But they're worth reading because that's kind of your agreement between you and your professor. So the professor is saying, I need you to do this, and this is kind of how the schedule is going to go, and this is the book we're going to use and all that. So typically, if you have a question about a class or a policy, like what's the attendance policy, those things are typically answered in the syllabus. So as unexciting and as legalistic as these things have gotten, they're the first kind of go-to place if you have questions about the course. Now, not every question may be answered there, but it's a good place to start, all right? So attendance policies, that's always a really fun, exciting topic in here. That's, as I said, you should typically find them on the syllabus. The key with attendance policies is they will vary, all right? So first of all, you're going to find in a lot of your entry-level courses that they're going to have a pretty strong attendance policy. Why? Because we're supposed to be teaching you to show up for work later, right? So especially depending on your area, all right, they'll be stricter, what your major focus is going to be. So you have to be kind of careful there. It is so tempting to sleep in on those mornings. I understand. I'm the teacher, and I'd like to sleep in some mornings too, but I can't because you guys pay me to be here. But I say that because you'll find there are some classes that for you, obviously it's different for everyone, but for you might be super easy. You might be like, I can smoke these tests, I don't need to show up. But if you miss too many days of class, depending on the class, you might fail anyway. All right, so really important to look at those. What have been some of you guys' experiences with attendance policies?
I have a professor, I know one of my main professors, it's you can't miss more than 3 days last semester. And if you miss more than 3, then he knocks off a letter grade. But I have other professors that just say pass your tests. So just really.
So you're going to see some variety, probably saying.
That's pretty much the same. It's like your upper level classes. A lot of the times the attendance policy is a lot less strict, but it just varies from professor to professor, and you need to make sure you pay attention to it because you can have an A all semester, miss 5 days of class, and fail his class. So.
All right, so just a little heads up warning there. That's something you want to look after. Obviously, the goal is to get you to come to class because hopefully there's something there. I mean, you get a lot of support from some of the faculty. They'll have a Blackboard page. You guys know what that is, right? So it's a support page where your grades might be and notices might be and things like that. And they're going to give you things there that help you, but don't think you shouldn't go to class. So we talked about this a lot last time. I did this group. Basically, for example, a lot of faculty will post their notes, but they'll leave critical items out. Or if you don't hear them go over those notes, you don't know what the important thing is. All right, you might just be generally trying to study those and not realize that in class some question came up and that faculty member spent 20 minutes on topic X. All right, and that gets into the whole missing class thing. So be careful about assuming because everything is on Blackboard for you to look at that everything, you've got it covered. All right?
That happens a lot. I've had professors that we don't really use a book, we just use PowerPoints, and they put the PowerPoint on Blackboard for you to print off, and you have that, but when you go to class, she has her own PowerPoint, and she's added stuff to that PowerPoint, and her tests are straight from that material. And if you miss class and you don't get that, then you're going to miss some pretty critical stuff. Also, even if there's not an attendance policy, it's really important to go because say you're like right there on the edge of an A and a B or a B and a C, if your instructor sees that you've been coming to class at least and trying to be there as much as you can, a lot of the times they're going to round that grade up. Or if you need them to write you recommendation letters later on for scholarships or for job opportunities later on, your attendance policy, your dress appearance, how much you pay attention in class, like they're going to remember stuff like that. So just keep that in mind.
Yeah, so it all kind of gets back to the attendance factor, right? So, and you don't always know what kind of job you're going to go for later. A lot of students change their major. Sometimes you have the requirements for the major, but they also want a reference that can verify you can write well or that you're a good public speaker. And that might go back to one of your gen ed classes. So some of you might be amazed. I mean, I see science majors all the time, like, oh God, why do I have to take a history class? And I'm like, well, it's kind of important to getting everything together, and you never know. You might really make a connection with that professor, and they might be your biggest cheerleader in helping you to get jobs in the future. And like I said, your interests change over time. So I say you don't think about it every day. Honestly, I'd rather have you in class, even in your pajamas and stuff, as long as they're publicly acceptable. As far as you getting to class, all right, I mean, having you there is the most important part. But do keep in mind, especially think of the field you're in. If you're taking business classes, how you appear, all right, is going to be really in the mind of those professors because they're trying to recommend you for an accounting job and things like that where there is an expectation of a dress code. For me, I'm a biologist, so I get in the lab and I have to get dirty and all that stuff. So if you come to our department, half the time you see faculty in shorts and stuff like that, but that's the field we're in, all right? So, temper that with some of your other classes where the expectation or even the requirement in some of the upper level business classes is that you dress a certain way, all right? And let's say that's just preparation for your future, right? We're trying to help you out. You just don't always feel that way because you kind of feel like, yep, I'm going to class, I got to take tests and all that. But a lot of these little rules behind the scenes are us just trying to help you get into habits. And some of you have them already. You might have 2 or 3 jobs or whatnot. Not unusual for me to have students come in after the night shift. They've worked as an EMT all night and they show up in my class at 9. We understand that kind of stuff, but just think about it, all right? So like I said, I'll take attendance over dress code, but in some classes, you really need to make that impression, and it's worth thinking about more as you graduate, but even still, because you just never know.
Going off of dress codes, most high schools have dress codes. You can't wear Nike shorts, you can't wear tank tops, stuff like that. There's not really dress codes on college campus. I mean, as long as you're appropriate, and also like depending on your department. But as far as dress codes go, there's not really one. But just keep in mind that your first impression and stuff like that is going to stick. So.
And no obscene images or messages on your clothing, because that is in the handbook too.
Yeah, I'm sure they've updated some of that. And you guys pretty much know. I mean, you're pretty sure, I would guess at this point. Otherwise, you wouldn't be headed our direction. It's just something to think about, as you go forward. And kind of like she said, they do these studies on job interviews where they say within the first 30 seconds, that interviewer has made a decision about you. And it's kind of scary and weird sometimes, but that's just the truth of what humans do. All right, so. That's one of the topics we like to discuss, is something you don't always think about ahead of time. As far as syllabus and what the faculty member expects, certainly you expect from them things too. So I don't want you to feel like this is all just on you. All right, you know, we have a lot of good faculty here. We have some, you know, it's academic. We have some that are a little different, but that definitely gets a nod. All right, so you will find it will take a little while to kind of get the gist of every different professor and how they do things and what they like. And some try to be shocking on purpose. Some, you know, are much quieter and things like that. As far as things that are also in the syllabus, things like, are these things allowed in class? All right. Some faculty are going to be very proactive. They're very in the modern age, right? They're going to want you to tweet them instead of emailing them, all this kind of stuff. Others see this as the most evil thing ever invented, all right? And they're going to want it away. They're not going to want to see it. They're not going to want to hear it. So it's really important to balance that. If you're someone, if it assists your studies, because for me, I'm kind of somewhere in the middle. I have a lot of students that will follow along with the notes, you know, on their phone or whatnot as I talk, which I have no problem with. For the most part, you'll find as long as you keep it out of sight and you're not interrupting the class, you'll be okay. I still suggest if a syllabus is nebulous, that you just say something to the professor. You know, after like the first class or whatever, when you get to meet them, you know, just say, hey, you know, I really like to be on my iPad or my computer or whatnot, following along and typing notes, and see what they say. All right, so kind of depends on that professor. All right, so just want to warn you about that. Typically, the rule would be, I know you're just going to have maybe one of those days where you're waiting for a really important phone call. That's the other thing. Typically, I'll have students tell me at the beginning of class. They'll be like, hey, you know, I was on this job interview, you know, I'm waiting for that phone call, or my daughter's sick, and I don't know if my husband's taking her to the hospital or not. And usually I'm pretty okay with that, as long as soon as the phone rings, you just kind of get up and walk out the door and handle that outside rather than disrupting the class, all right? But like I say, you're going to see a whole range of opinions about it. So watch for that. I know Kayla's had some not so good experiences with that.
Yeah.
So
I had a professor 2 semesters ago, I believe, who in his classroom, his clock was like on the back wall, and I sat right in the middle, so I would have to turn all the way around to see the clock. And so I kept my phone in my lap so I could check my time, and I was literally just checking the time because I'm pretty good about staying off my phone. And he stops the whole class and calls me out and tells me to put my phone away. So you're going to have professors like that, but then you're going to have the ones who, you know, as long as your screen's not turned up and distracting somebody, if you're not opening Snapchats and disturbing people, then most of the times they won't really care. Because like she said, you guys are paying her. If you don't want to pay attention to the material, that's on y'all. She's still going to teach the ones that are paying attention. So
Some of them will even kick you out of class and make you leave.
yeah, that's true too.
usually the dead giveaways when the people behind you are laughing, because you know you've got some video or something running on your screen. Usually you can tell who's really paying attention. Otherwise, they're just really good at flipping back and forth notes. Because I have had a student or two where I had to say, "Hey, what do you actually have going on there?" And they can show me they actually had a note-taking program and stuff. So that's all right. And that also, that communication with the faculty, and I said, some faculty may seem kind of intimidating to you. I know 1 or 2 science faculty at least that come off as super intimidating, but actually if you got to know them, they are the ones that would fight for you and do anything for you. They just come off real tough at first. All right, so that communication is critical. Back to the attendance thing. If you know you're going to be gone, if you know you're not feeling well on Sunday, you might send an email heads up to the faculty member, and from there you have to follow the attendance policy. If you need a written excuse to miss that attendance, then try to hit the nurse on campus. Try to do something that shows, hey, I was sick that day.
The nursing services are free too. I don't know if we told y'all that. Or
So
not,
that's
but-
it, because I hear a lot from students, they really just can't afford the money to go to a doctor. And if you're going to be in a class that has that attendance policy and you need that documentation, at least talk to the nurse on campus. Now I know every once in a while you're going to have the flu or something, and getting up is just not possible. All right, that happens, and then you just have to deal with the attendance policy that you have. All right, most faculty are pretty reasonable, but you know what happens around midterms and finals? I'll open up my email in the morning and I'll just have 6, 7, 8 students. Excuse, which is fine. They may all be honest, but you get a little worn out about it. So I said, I don't know what your experience has been with